Hey, everybody, and welcome to Learning from Smart People. I am your host, Rob Oliver, and today I have with me Scott Ballard. And he's been doing what he's been doing since he was a 7-year-old dyslexic kid. At first, he believed the lie that he was stupid and would never be able to achieve anything, but then he discovered that he had the superpower of encouragement. He has used that superpower to help create insight and breakthroughs for hundreds of people to take their life and their business to the next level. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rob. I am excited and looking forward to this conversation today.
Yeah, no problem. This is what's really cool is it gets to be a conversation between you and me and the hundreds and thousands of people who have tuned in to listen. So, just a little bit of you and me with whoever in the background is how it works. Great. So, let's start here. Tell me a little bit about your backstory. You would, as we mentioned in the open, you were diagnosed with dyslexia. What age did that happen? How did you? What was your kind of self-awareness as that was going on? Just talk a little bit about that experience, please.
Yeah, I grew up in the States in a small rural town in Southern Oregon in the 60s and, had amazing parents. So I was, as a kid before school, I was the friend of everybody in the neighborhood or, in the area. I love people. And so I was excited to go to school, as a 7-year-old, I was excited. And so I went to school and, that was back in the 60s. So, traditional classroom, one teacher, 20 kids. I knew, Rob, a month or two into it that I was not learning like the other kids. And what was unusual about being in a small rural town was they made it a practice that the teacher would come and have dinner at your home at the beginning of the school year and at the end. So about a month or so or 6 weeks into it, our teacher came to our house for dinner. And one of the things she said to my parents was that, he needs to focus and work harder and buckle down. And, my parents were fairly strict in the way they raised us 4 kids. And so they had a heart to heart with me. And so I went back and I really tried to focus and discipline. And it just got worse. And I fell farther behind and I didn't get it. And my teacher became frustrated with me a couple of months in. And she took my desk out of the rows, the traditional rows, and she put me in the corner and said, "You're stupid, you're a dunce, and you'll never be anything."
Oh,
And so, at 7, I was raised to really honor and respect teachers and people of authority and all that. I believed her. Now, at this point, I still didn't know, and my parents didn't know, like, what was the challenge or why I was having trouble reading, writing, the basic stuff. They didn't know. Because in the 60s, dyslexia wasn't as known, and there certainly wasn't awareness by teachers and we lived in a small rural town, so there was even less of, resources around that. So that's where I discovered that, gosh, I'm not like all of my buddies that are in my class. I'm not learning like they're learning. And that took me on a spiral to depression, to suicidal thoughts, to at the end of the year, the teacher came back to our house and recommended to my parents, to my greatest dread, that I do first grade over again. Well, the second time it was worse because I still couldn't, comprehend and read and all that. So it was dreadful. Plus, all my friends went to second grade. So the humiliation of that and the shame of that really even took me farther down. That's kind of the dark side of the backstory of, my first memories of my childhood really kind of are in that little, and that school's still there. In fact, until last year. My older sister taught there. It's the same classroom as there. I mean, I can go and see it, but it was a really horrific thing for a 7-year-old to kind of process and try to negotiate. So that's the beginning of the story, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, okay. So first of all, just I love the concept of the teacher coming over for dinner at the beginning and end of the school year. What a great way in which it's a parent teacher conference, but it's done on your parents' turf, not in the school on their turf. What a great idea. But at the same time, that that kind of system that says if you are not acquiring the information, the problem is not the system, the problem is you.
Yeah.
And that's especially as a seventh grader to be, or not seventh grader, a 7-year old to be looking at that and saying, I'm the problem.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I believe the lie, Rob. See, that's the dark side of this whole thing, which ends up being the real learning lesson blessing. It's who I am today. Was I believed the label she put on me, and then the kids that made fun of me and whatever. I believed that I was stupid and not worth anything and never going to be anything. I believed it because that's what I was taught. And yeah.
yeah. So it's what you're talking about though is right on the money from where I come from. Okay. And I think I've told this story before, but it's okay. It's a good story and you're going to hear it again. One of the first places that I went and I had a paid speech. When I went, the meeting planner was there. I was so excited. I went in and she gave me my name tag, and my name tag was Bob Oliver because I had put my full name, Robert Oliver, on the contract, and so, I wanted, this is my first paid speaking engagement. I want to work with this meeting planner again. I can't tell her this is wrong. And I thought, what am I going to do? And as I'm leaving the table where she ate, and she pinned it on me, very kindly said, like your hands don't work very well. So as I left the table, the first person I come up to looks at my name tag and they see the little speaker thing at the bottom and they're like, oh, hey. And they look at me and, oh, you're Bob. You're our speaker today. Bob, very nice to meet you. And then turns around and is immediately like, hey, Jim, come meet Bob. And I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? Eventually, I got by myself in a little coat closet and was able to take that off. But what I had to come to realize is that if I had left that on, everyone would think that's who I am because that's the label that I'm wearing. Okay. Someone else made the mistake. Someone else put it on me. But if I leave it there, then I accept it and I become what my label says. What's your reaction to that?
Oh, no, that absolutely, we're on parallel thought patterns. Like that's the truth of it. And so what you did in the coat closet by changing that is what I do now for a living. And I have labeled it the Great Exchange. So you've been given this label that's a lie. Let's just say, for example, or it's wrong. It's the wrong name. I mean, that's pretty hugely identifying problem. And you got to a place where you change that. And what I do with people of all different backgrounds and situations is I help them identify the lie that has held them back or prevented them from being all that they can be. We identify that lie, and then we work on what is the truth. The truth is you're Rob.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but it's amazing. That sounds so simple, but there are people that their whole lifetime, they've never exchanged a lie for truth, the truth of who they are. And so I call that the Great Exchange. It's a big part of the work that we do with people.
Okay. So let me kind of take this to the next area where I see it. And that is, because I have a physical disability, I use a power wheelchair. And when I go around, people assume that I am hard of hearing, or assume that I am stupid, or a number, any number of things. And they talk slowly to me, they talk loud to me, all of it. There's so many different things that go with it. And I had to struggle with that to come to realize that just because that's what they think of me doesn't make it so unless I accept it. And that's really what you're talking about. So talk to me then about where did you make the understanding, where did you get the understanding that changed between your 7-year-old self accepting the lie of being stupid and your current self of understanding that I'm not stupid. I have, as the Open says, I have a superpower. I have the ability to help other people. This is not who I actually am.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it came in chunks and bits and pieces that made the person that you see in here today. Like, so it wasn't, whoop, I woke up one morning and I'm this. And no, it's been a lifetime journey. I'm 62 now. And I wish I knew what I know now at 7, but life doesn't work that way. Like, so I had to piece myself back together over time, right? Mm. And that came in a lot of different experiences, insights, revelations that came to me through other people, through situations that I put myself into. The first big one came in the 6th grade. So I did the 1st grade twice, which was horrific and terrible and brutal. But I learned some things, Rob, that every person in the planet needs to learn. And one of those was I learned how to treat people well, respect people, be encouraging to people, build people up. So I got to 6th grade and I walked into 6th grade and I have a full-time tutor just to be able to read and write at a 1st or 2nd grade level. But because I learned how to navigate the school system and how to serve a teacher well, they just passed me on, right? So I walk into the 6th grade, which is interesting. And this teacher comes in and he's this big guy. He's this young man. It's his first year of teaching. We didn't know that the first day. He's like 6'5", and he's just this big guy. And the first thing he says to all of us, Rob, is take all the desks and put them outside. We're not going to use them this year. Immediately, I go into panic mode. Oh, my God, I'm going to have to start. Like, this guy's going to unlearn everything that I've learned just to survive, and he's going to change the whole system, and now I have to start at scratch again. So we move the desk out, and he comes back in, and he goes, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do experiential learning, and we're going to turn this whole classroom into a business so that you can understand when you get out of school, the real world is business. It's finances. It's owning a business. It's the stock market. It's all these things. Every one of you is going to get a business and going to get startup money, $50, whatever it was. And we're going to learn about math through business and keeping books and the history of business, all this stuff. And we're going to make this an incubator before incubators were even known. And this is what's going to prepare you for adult life in 6th grade. Well, I got a business. He gave it to me. I rented balls at recess for people to play foursquare or basketball or whatever. And I still was like, oh, gosh, why would I get the one teacher that's going to, instead of doing the traditional thing, reinvent the whole thing? Well, long story short, and it's an amazing story. Mr. Bacall was my teacher, amazing, gifted teacher of children. By the end of the year, I owned every business in the classroom, and I had pretty much all the money. There was something in the way I was wired where I understood business, economics, serving, creating value for people. And I just was fascinated by it. And I got it. And other kids that were like getting A's and all this stuff in school, they just didn't get it. And I remember at the end of the year, Mr. Bacall had taken me to the side and I was barely passing like on the test, and he was going like, don't ever forget what you've learned this year, because someday you're going to be released from school. You're going to be able to get out of here. And this is part of what you really are gifted to do.
Wow.
So that's one of the pieces that helped me get through the next 6 years, because I still had 6 years of school I had to do, because
Sure.
that's the law, and you got to find a way, right?
Right. So, and what I'm assuming that you're doing now is you have become Mr. Bacall for other people. And
Yes.
how do you see the potential instead of the obstacles? Because that we are, a lot of us anyway, we are wired to see the negative instead of the positive. We're wired to see the obstacle instead of the opportunity. How do you work with people? Because I'm just, okay, so not everyone that's listening has dyslexia or has a spinal cord injury, but I'm assuming that everyone that is listening to this podcast has had somebody in their life who said, you can't, or you will never, or you won't, or you are less than. I think everybody's had that. How do you get that? How do you open eyes to opportunities instead of obstacles?
Well, it actually, not to get stuck in grade school, but it actually came back there. So by me not being able to see my own superpower, my own ability, my own, genius, or whatever the word you want to use. So I took all the focus off myself, because I believe, like, okay, I'm not going to ever be anything. But I met Rob on the playground, and I would see you playing at Foursquare or whatever it may be, or in class. And I had the ability to see that ability in you, and actually encourage you in it, and actually encourage you to get yourself in places and position where that could even expand more. So I did this with kids, and I also did it with my teachers. So I'd go up to a teacher afterwards, and they just gave me an F because I flunked the test again. But I would say, when you were teaching on the American history yesterday, or about this or whatever, you're really good at that. And the passion you have, the conviction, whatever. And I would have these adult conversations as a 12-year-old or 11-year-old with teachers. And I was the only one giving them feedback to say, you know what, this is something you're really gifted at.
Yeah.
So I can see the genius, the superpower. I've been practicing this for almost 60 years. And I can sit down with somebody and I can see their greatness to where they can't see it, or it's so covered up by the lie, they can't even get to it.
Okay. So I'm going to give you something that I've been thinking about, and you can tell me that I'm all wet, or you can go with it. Okay. And so
Okay.
I have thought there are so many different games in the world. When you watch the Olympics, okay, there are, like, we have the traditional things that we're all excited about here, but there's handball and there's equestrian and there's a bunch of stuff that they put on TV late at night so that, because it's not going to draw the ratings. But what I've thought about with that is everybody is likely good at something. They just haven't found the venue that matches their skill set. What's your reaction to that?
Oh, no, 100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so easy. And here's where we get tripped up on that. We're told by the world or social media or the culture or whatever that we should be like them. But that is not my gift. That's not my superpower. That's not my genius. So I have to look and do the work and find the evidence of where I do have that. And so that's what we do. We help people uncover the evidence of this is, hey, have you ever felt like when you're totally in the zone doing something?
Yeah.
So one of the things for me is what I'm doing right here. I speak, I teach, I in front of people on a podcast, on a TV show, or whatever. I have genius. I do any preparation, Rob? Did I do any preparation for this? I'll be totally transparent. I do none because my genius is in the moment. It isn't in reading and studying and all that. That's never worked for me because of who I am and the way I am. But in the moment, spur of the moment, I can transform somebody's belief in their life.
Yeah. So here's what I'm thinking in that, and that is when people go to be an entrepreneur or they want to get into business or whatever it is, you're told you need a certain skill set. You've got to have a business degree, you've got to have a business mind, you've got to have all of these things. And what you're saying, and maybe you can hear me out on this, okay? You have your own business. You are in charge of your own business. And the things that you're not good at, I'm assuming you have other people do for you. There are the essential elements of what your business exists for that only you can do, and everything else is delegatable, if that is a word. What's your thought there?
100%. I couldn't have said it better myself. I only do three things in my business. Everything else is done by a team of people. And it's their genius by them doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's their strength. It's what energizes them. It's what brings them alive. It's what brings creativity to them. And so what I learned playing sports in junior high and high school was that I was able, even while I'm playing, the coaches would come to me and say, Ballard, what should we do? Or who should we put in we're not winning this game. What are we missing? And I instantly could say, okay, put Ken in, put Hans in, put these guys in, we'll run this play and it will work. And these were coaches that had coached for many years and been successful. And they would say, I would be playing the game and they'd go call timeout. Let's ask Scott, what are we missing here? Because it's not working.
Okay.
And I didn't even know it then. I just thought, well, I love basketball. I love the game. I didn't fully sit, but after having that experience over and over, I was like, no, that's different than everybody else on the team.
Okay. And I want to highlight this, okay? And that is because of the nature of how you are wired, you see things differently. Mm. And when you were 7 years old, you had a teacher who said he sees things differently, and as a result, he is stupid and devalued. Whereas when you are in sixth grade, you have Mr. Ballard who says he sees things differently, and it opens up possibilities for success. And when you have coaches in sports who say, we've been looking at this from a traditional viewpoint for so long, let's ask the kid who sees things differently what he sees. And when he's seeing it, we can all learn from a different viewpoint. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, 100%. 100%. That's the beauty of realizing this. The truth is, everybody has this God-given ability, this genius, this superpower. What they're lacking is the insight, the encouragement, the transformation, and getting rid of the lie, throwing that away, and getting and operating in their truth, in their superpower, in their ability that gives them life and also makes the greatest contribution to the world, to society, to their family, to their marriage, to their children, to the school, whatever they're doing. And this is why entrepreneurs and business owners really are the problem solvers in the world today. And it's not, and I'm going to step on toes here, it's not the political system, it isn't the government, it isn't all these other things, because they're stuck in a finite system to where I've been forced, and it's a large number of entrepreneurs are dyslexic, to think outside the box, outside the paradigm, and actually see and put together the gifts of a lot of people to create value that transforms the world and solves its problems.
Okay. And I'm thinking about this from a sports team perspective, and that is there are glamour positions in football, okay? So yeah. The quarterback, the running back, the wide receivers, those are your glamour positions. But I'm here in Pittsburgh with the Steelers, and what we have found out is that the unglamorous positions of offensive line, if you don't have a good offensive line, your quarterback, your wide receivers, and your running back are all going to struggle. And so in that way, everyone has a skill set that they bring to the team. And a team is not, if you have a team of 11 quarterbacks on the field at the same time, your team is going to fail miserably. Yeah. But when you bring together everyone operating in, and I think a former guest opened my eyes to this term, when everyone's operating in their zone of genius, you create a team where everyone brings their strengths, and you match, and you take the strengths of all of the individuals combined, and they fill in the deficits of others, and they create the synergy and the teamwork that is necessary to move forward. I'm assuming I'm speaking your language.
I couldn't have said it better. It is 100% not only absolutely what I believe, but truth, and 100% provable over and over and over. Not only in sports, but I work deeply in the entrepreneur business community. The companies that win are teams of people that have done exactly what you're talking about. They have the center, they have the left tackle, they have the right. I'm a big Oregon Duck football, college football fan, and our head coach is an offensive lineman. And our rise again to being in the top 4 or 5 in the country really comes from the offensive line coaching and the players they've recruited, because our quarterback is not the best quarterback in the world, but he is so protected and so well blocked that our quarterback, running back, and our receivers are having a record year.
Yeah.
Right. Your point I watched the game last weekend and I was like, our O-line played out of their mind.
Yeah.
Now they're never going to get the front page. They're never, they're not.
Right.
But it is the secret to our success. And that's the first thing the head coach said. Hey, our O-line, that's the difference between us and other people right now.
Good. Okay. We're almost out of time, and I want to close on this thing. You found Mr. Ballard that believed in you. Okay. You found coaches that believed in you on the sports field. What do you say to people? Because that's not everybody. I'm assuming the vast majority of people did not believe in you, did not see that. What's your word of encouragement for people who are out there who are feeling like nobody believes in me? I'm different, and nobody sees the value in that. What's your word of encouragement for them?
Okay, a couple of things. The number one thing I tell the people I work with over and over, to sometimes to their, like, is that what you're going to say? Is I believe in you. Because it is the most powerful, thought-provoking, world-changing, thinking-changing idea that anybody can do for somebody else. Number two, those negative voices, those lies, you have to have the discipline and the ability to turn those off. Just like you turn your volume off on your TV to mute. You have to mute that voice from your life. And then you have to find a voice that sees your genius, that builds you up, that encourages you, and also challenges you to step fully into it. Mm. It's one thing to know it. It's another thing to actually live it out and go do it. And that's where we come in. I just don't want you to know that this is your genius. I actually want you to go and be that and live that and contribute that into the world.
Yeah,
that's what we're missing right now on the earth today, is 8 billion people actually living out their genius.
It's funny. My wife is the person who says, I know what you're capable of, and I will not accept anything less than your absolute best, which is so challenging. Listen, we're out of time. If people want to learn more about you, if they want to connect with you, tell me, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, we have a website called confidencecoach.org. Okay, so you can find us there. And then Probably a quick way to LinkedIn, Scott Ballard. I'm on LinkedIn. You can see a little bit of my story. Yeah, and both places are equally good.
Wonderful. And you have a thing called Fear Friday. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, Fear Friday is a call that I host, and basically the conversation is what we're most afraid of on that Friday, and then as a group, as a group supporting each other, what we're going to do to overcome that fear in the next week, and we call it Fear Friday. So it's fun, challenging, and very encouraging, and it's amazing what people will do when they have support instead of somebody telling them what they can't do. Oftentimes that's just the tipping point, right? It's the leverage that we all need.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. I will put all of that information in the show notes so that people can find out more about you there. I, it is time for 3 questions to establish your humanity. Are you ready for this, my friend?
Uh, I will give it my best shot.
Okay. And it's funny that we ended up on Fear Friday because the first question that I had selected for you is what is your biggest fear?
Yeah, my biggest fear is probably around now the my biggest fear right now probably is around being fully vulnerable about the struggles that I still have as I still work through the traumas and the lies that have been in my life.
Understood. Thank you for being open about that. Uh, on a lighter note, what song will get you on stage for karaoke night? Is there a favorite sing along song for Scott Ballard?
Oh gosh, I love music. It's very inspiring to me. To nail it down to one,
Is there a genre of music that speaks
yeah,
to you?
70s soft rock. I'm dating myself. I absolutely am inspired by it. My wife and I started dating when we were 18. We've been together 44 years. We can turn that on in the car or whatever. And like we go to a happy place that, because it's just such, and I love the stories of the music. Yeah.
Okay, so you and I are similar in nature. Then I'm a child of the '80s, so
Yeah.
whenever I'm on a road trip, it's generally '80s music. And the other piece is, how can you not sing along to "This Is the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius"? Right?
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
it's
Exactly. Yeah.
wonderful. Okay, last question for you. Being out in Oregon on the West Coast,
Yeah.
is there a food that you would say is an Oregonian food, or is there? What would you say is something if people come to visit in Oregon? This is something that you need to order, or a place that you need to visit to get something that is unique to our state.
Yeah. I totally got this one nailed. So we have some really good friends. So we're an hour from the beach. Okay. So we live in the valley. There's the big mountains, 12,000 feet, the valley, and then the coast range. And then in an hour, we're standing on the Oregon coast. So we have some friends that own a coffee bakery called Sea Level Bakery and a Sea Level Coffee. And they make all their own fresh pastries, everything. I mean, it's like you've gone to France, but you're in Cannon Beach, Oregon, right? But Liz makes this acai bowl. If you know what that is, it's granola, it's fruit, it's like, and they make it all from scratch, and it's all local. It's all the ingredients are local in Oregon. And I got to tell you that with some, they have organic green tea. Now I'm going really West Coast here. That is like, I would fly across the country to have. In fact, this Saturday, Rob, this Saturday on the calendar is Sea Level Coffee. We're going. We're gonna. Me and my wife are driving over there Saturday morning to spend some time. Liz and Jay own that, and It is world famous and amazing, and the line is long.
Wonderful. What I will do some research, and if there's a website for them, I will link that in
There
the
is,
show notes
there
as
is,
well. Wonderful.
there.
And listen, you may tempt my kids to fly cross country to get an acai bowl. That they're into that stuff. Hey, Scott Ballard, thank you so much for being with me today. You have indeed shared a lot for us to learn about. For all my listeners, thank you for being here. And I will remind you, as always, that when you stop learning, you stop living. Have a great day, everybody.